So hey guys, you're probably wondering why you heard just a part of the Child's Play theme song from the original 1988 movie, and that is because today I'm going to talk about the latest Chucky film, which is The Curse of Chucky. This film was direct to video. It came out on October 8th, so not too long ago. Um, Finally got around to watching it. I'm reviewing it here, and I'm reviewing it for a newspaper source here soon as well. Um, but let's talk about Curse of Chucky, which is the latest, like I said, the latest Chucky installment. So I rented this from Redbox, and this film, I think it's the longest term sequel as far as the series goes. Um, I think Bride of Chucky was the second longest wait because it took them so many years to make the movie finally. But in this film, you guys, basically, there's a girl in a wheelchair and an artist that live in this house, and they get a delivery one day in the mail by a delivery guy of this box, and they open it up, and it turns out to be the Chucky doll. Not the Chucky doll we saw from Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky with the scars all over his face, but the original good guy doll that we saw from Child's Play 1, 2, and 3 with no scarring, but we know it's the Chucky doll. Um, Basically, the artist gets killed off. People don't know who killed the woman, um, but this leaves the wheelchair girl all alone by herself in this house. But she's lucky because she has people who come over to the house. It's never quite clear who these people are. Either they're people who are interested in buying the house or going to help this girl out, or they could maybe a close family to her. So they live in the house for a little bit, and the youngest girl who is a part of this group of people, gets close to the Chucky doll, kind of like what happened with Andy Barkley in the first Child's Play film. She gets close to the Chucky doll. She thinks the Chucky doll is talking to her. She's the Chucky doll saying very dirty, very mean things about things that are going on, kind of like what happened with Andy Barkley once again in the first movie. And so it kind of plays out in the first Child's Play in that sense for a little bit, and basically, the girl in the wheelchair slowly starts to find out over time that she's connected to the Chucky doll in a way. She's connected to Charles Lee Ray, who's the person who transferred his soul into the Chucky doll in the first Chucky film. So this film has a very big connection to the first film, and there's some other earlier installments that this film connects with as well. But there's a lot of connections with the first film specifically. There's even a flashback scene every once in a while that connects to the first film even more than you think it would. Um, so basically, throughout this film, it's basically takes place around another person who gets haunted by the Chucky doll, and how we find out throughout the film why she's connected to it, and why it took Chucky so long to get to this girl that he's haunting throughout the movie, and things kind of slowly come together throughout the film's progression. So for positives and negatives, you guys, I do like how this one went back to the Child's Play 1 formula. I really like that a lot, actually. I'm really glad that there's a Chucky film finally that isn't a dark comedy because Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky went the dark comedy route. Though the earlier Child's Play films did have some dark comedy elements in them as well. I would say the first three Child's Play films are more so horror films than dark comedies, and I like how Curse of Chucky went back to the horror genre more so than the dark comedy genre. I liked how there was no bride or son doll in this. If they did make another Chucky film like they did here, my first thing I said to myself after seeing Seed of Chucky, because I didn't like it very much, was if they do another Chucky film, I want it to be just Chucky. I don't want it to be the bride. I don't want it to be the son. I want it to be just the Chucky doll in it. And luckily for me, Don Mancina did do that request by making the film strictly about the Chucky doll itself. I like how the film also went back to robotics, like what the earlier films did. And I think even Seed of Chucky did that because it was made in the mid 2000s. So I'm glad how this series is sticking to the robotics because I really think that more films would be appreciated nowadays if they're done with physical, hard, real things that are there, such like robotics, like what happened with this movie with the Chucky doll. I'm glad that it wasn't a CGI execution. A lot of people have been worrying over time that if more Chucky films were made, they would have gone the CGI route. Luckily, they have not, and I hope they stick with that because the robotics route really adds a sense of realism into the movie. And I really like how they sticked with this technology since day one with the first Child's Play film, and even Curse of Chucky sticks with that tradition of robotics instead of CGI. So I like that execution that they had with this. Um, I like how the film connects to some of the earlier installments. Small things like the girl looking up, information about the Chucky doll. Seeing information about the Kent Military School from Child's Play 3. Things like putting Chucky in the trash, like what happened in Child's Play 3. A lot of earlier installment references and connections. Something that I really can't get into because it would spoil something that happens in the movie. But there's a huge connection to the first film, and it actually explains why a certain event happened the way it did, and even a little bit of how Charles Lee Ray even became the Chucky doll to begin with. So I'm glad how this film has those connections to those earlier installments. Playing off of that a little bit some more, I like how the film also homages to those earlier films. So it really reminds us of some of those really good, really unique scenes from the earlier installments. I'm glad this film gave me those good memories and those homages to those earlier installments. The house they used to film this movie I thought was very creepy and very effective for the film they were trying to make. I really liked the whole creepy house setting that they had for this. It was always dark, always glimly lit, very appropriate for a Chucky film. There was also two good cameos in the film that I can't get into details on because it would spoil the movie. But make sure you watch everything, even stay after the end credits, because there is something shown at the end credits as well. That's also a really good part of the movie. I don't think it saves the movie, to be honest, but the fact that they have two really good cameos in this, one that happens before the end credits as well, um, that are in this film, I think really adds a whole sense of completion and connection to the entire series that the film does manage to maintain, and it's one of the better parts of the movie. Now on to the negatives, because I do have, unfortunately do have quite a few of them. I do think the film is very poorly structured. It really has no idea what it's doing, to be honest. It has all these clever homages, all these clever connections. A great creepy house setting for the film to take place in. They use robotics like they have with earlier Chucky films. There's no brighter sun doll in this. They go back to the Child's Play 1 formula, but it's just so poorly structured. The story that they have laid out here is just really not very good. There's also some very confusing script choices involving characters who we thought were dead in earlier installments, and they randomly come back to life in this one. They also don't talk about, some characters that went to some mental institutions in some earlier installments, and how they're randomly living in a random house in a random location somewhere, and it's never really quite explained how they got out of that and why they live there. Um, I think the film does lose direction towards the end of the movie. It really has no idea what it wants to do. In fact, there's 3 points in the movie where you think, okay, they're going to end it here. No, wait, they're continuing. Okay, they're going to end it here. Oh, nope, it's still going. Nope, now they're going to end it here. And then they end it in the third spot. But it really loses direction. It really has no idea what kind of film it wants to be. Rather, it's, you know, Chucky revealing why he's doing all this, or, um, you know, this girl, trying to figure out what she's going to do, how she's going to live in this wheelchair and, be on her own or be with other people. And, it just has so many different directions it could go in it, but it just doesn't pursue just one of them. It just tries to pursue all of them. And by the end of the film, it's just a giant mess because of it. Um, Also, the Chucky design, like on the face and on around the body, it seems very inconsistent. In one scene, Chucky almost looks like an Asian guy. There's another scene where just the overall robotics looks like you can definitely tell it's a different doll than what we saw earlier in the movie. Um, there's a part where they go back to the scarred Chucky again, and it just really, really inconsistent, and it really bothered me after a while, to be honest. There is several horror cliche scenes in here. Definitely a lot of scenes where people say hello and they go and check the shower curtain and then nothing happens, but something bad happens immediately after that. Things like checking under beds, nothing happens, and then something bad happens to them. A lot of those things happen in this movie. And it really kind of gets on your nerves, and it almost makes you wish that Don Mancini, who wrote and directed the movie, just could have made an original Chucky story, and instead he just goes the traditional horror story route and just makes something that we've seen a million times before, specifically in other horror films already. Um, there's also several corny and predictable moments in here. Definitely a film where I definitely was not surprised a lot, maybe once, but only that one time. There's also several corny scenes in here, specifically scenes where people being there's a small cut on their arm and them spewing a ton of blood out of it, and just some really unrealistic, very it's a violent movie. I understand this series has always been violent, but If it gets to the point where your character has a small little cut on their arm and it's just spewing blood, that's just too much, and it really doesn't have to go that route. It just seems very distasteful, to be honest. So Curse of Chucky, you guys, I give it a 5 out of 10. There are certain things that are done right, but there's just so many things about it that aren't done right either. I think if this is the end of the franchise, I think it, like what Seed of Chucky did, I think it does end on a bad note. Though the overall film is better than Seed of Chucky, it really is not a very good movie. I would even say even Bride of Chucky is better than this film, and that's not saying a lot simply because the only reason why I would say that is because Bride of Chucky just wasn't as bad as this film was. Um, so Curse of Chucky, guys, I wouldn't recommend it. I think you can skip it. Maybe if you're a hardcore fan, maybe just see it once like I did. You'll probably be disappointed, which is why I'm not going to recommend that to the fans either. So Curse of Chucky, thumbs down from me. Don't see it. 5 out of 10. Really not a good sequel.